Hello, friends. It's time for Talk for Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses in the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin. Today we are here with Dennis Plautz. But before we talk to Dennis, let's do a quick market update and some info.
We got some fun facts today, Todd.
I love it.
You ready?
Yep.
Global. And we've seen a couple of these before, but some of them are just cool. All right. The world's most expensive house is believed to be an Antilia in Mumbai, India.
Mumbai.
Mumbai?
Oh, it's that billionaire's house where he built the skyscraper.
Worth over $1 billion. It
Yep.
has 27 stories, a ballroom, and even a snow room that makes artificial snow.
Nice.
Cool. The White House has 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 28 fireplaces. Originally built in 1792 for $232,000.
Does it have a ballroom?
It should.
Not yet.
It will.
It will. The Eiffel Tower was originally considered a temporary real estate. It was supposed to be dismantled after 20 years.
Well, after the World's Fair, they put it up for the World's Fair, and then, it was supposed to come back down.
Supposed to come right back down. All right. The U.S. housing market is the largest asset class in the world, worth over $40 trillion.
That makes sense.
In New York City, the land value of Central Park alone is estimated at $500 billion, more than the GDP in most countries.
You ever been to Central Park?
No.
It's so cool. Just in the middle of town, here's this garden paradise. It's just cool. And they keep it up so well. You can tell New Yorkers have pride in Central Park because when you drive through there, you'll see a little bit of stuff or whatever, but it seems clean compared to the rest of the city.
That was a Frederick Law Olmsted Park, I think. He designed it.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
they had
cool.
to buy, they had tore buildings down to put that in, didn't they?
I don't know about that, but
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Strip has some of the most valuable commercial real estate per square foot in the country. In Japan, it's common for homes to be torn down after 30 years since buyers value land more than the building itself.
Okay.
In Scotland, homeowners paint their front door red when they pay off their mortgage.
Cool.
Yeah, so you know if someone's paid off their mortgage. There's a town in Georgia called Beaufort where the original mall was sold for only $10. And that probably happens way more than... We've had buildings here in Fort Dodge sell for $1, right?
We have.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't want anything to do with them. So
I did go through a house the other day, and the guy goes, they only want $10,000 for it. I'm like, if you gave me 20, I wouldn't take it.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about our guest here for a minute. Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been here a long time.
Yes.
I worked for the city for 36 years, and then I was the first CEO of the Growth Alliance and was there almost 12.
That's crazy.
And now I've been retired for 2 years as of Labor Day, which I'm really enjoying.
Yep.
Originally from Pocahontas. So I really had a perspective on Fort Dodge, from an outsider's view before I ever started working here.
And did you go to Iowa State?
Went to Augustana College and had a business degree, and then I went to Iowa State and got planning and landscape architecture degrees.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. So does an architecture degree, landscape architecture, come in a little more handy now that you're retired than it did before?
Well, it would, except I don't have time. So, I used to ask people, what do you do in retirement? And a friend of mine told me one time, he said, well, I don't know, but the days go awfully quick. And now I know what he meant. So,
Yep. One of my favorite things to do, because he told me that, so you'd send him a picture of a tree. What is this? And he'd give you the whole rundown of the species.
Parthenocissus kinkifolia or Taxus cuspidata capitata. How am I doing?
You're doing better than I could.
start talking about birds.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've been in the community 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that time went, but originally I'd never intended to work here.
Yep.
And I had a job in Kansas City, and I took a CETA position here temporarily.
What's a CETA position?
Well, it was an old federal employment program, and it was a grant program, and the city lost an employee, and they had to get somebody quickly to keep the grant. And I found out about it, so I planned on being here for about 2 months. And went to work in the planning department. In the meantime, I broke up with a girl that was in Wichita, so I decided not to go to Kansas City. And 50 years later, here I am in Fort Dodge.
For a 2-month job.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I didn't know anything at that time. I was just a kid. But I decided that there were 2 places. I didn't care where I worked. I just knew between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. I'm a Midwest kid.
Yep.
But I didn't want to work in Sioux City, and I didn't want to work in Fort Dodge, and that's a true story. And I think the only reasons were I'd been to Sioux City maybe once, and I drove across the bridges, and I could smell the stockyards and everything, and got a bad impression. And here we used to come down to the Larimar when it was the Playmore, and we'd go to dances on Friday night, and I'd watch guys get in fights and different things, and I don't know, for some reason I just decided I didn't want to work here. Well, like I said, 50 years later, we're here by choice. We had opportunities to leave several times, and I chose to stay, and it's really become home.
That's awesome.
It's kind of different how that works. And being from Pokey, and even then, it was 1975, right?
Yeah, August 2nd, 1975.
Yeah, 1975. Still, Fort Dodge was booming.
Yeah.
It had the packing plants going. Population was probably close to 35,000 versus...
Well, the peak was 31,263.
Okay.
And that was in 1970.
Okay. So it was working its way down at 75, or it was still
well,
right there?
It's interesting because people think, the perception is that the big downturn in population here was when Hormel's and Iowa Beef went out, American Can, and that was in 81, 82, 83. But we went from 31,000 down to 28,000 between 1970 and 1980. So there was population loss here.
What was the reason for that?
Well, I think, there were a lot of smaller companies, Coates and Bush Hog and people like that. And, the United States was getting away from the regional markets, in which we were. And you weren't as reliant in your economy on the region as you were more nationally. Technology was changing, transportation needs were changing, communications. You could start to do more things from more places.
Right, that makes sense.
And then the biggest thing, I think, was the change in the agricultural economy. We were a service retail center and still are. But if you go back into the 50s, let's say, I'll bet that today, I don't know this exactly, but I'll bet there's about 30% of the people employed in agriculture today that there was in 1950 in our region.
Right.
Bigger farms, smaller family sizes,
Bigger
and so
equipment.
on. Bigger equipment, more custom farming, more absentee landlords. And so that had a huge impact on the economy in Fort Dodge, probably as much as anything.
That makes sense.
And then we weren't linked to the interstates, which, thank goodness, now 20 is complete. And I think Highway 20 is probably one of the most undervalued assets we have today. People don't realize how important that will be to us in the future.
Highway 20 is a great, coming off 80, 380 up 20, it's always nice, it's straight, it's clear. Mm-hmm. Going to Dubuque, going to Sioux City, you can go all the way across the state on 4 lanes.
And people worked on that for 25 years, and boy, you have to give those people foresight or credit for their foresight for doing it, because it's something that was absolutely necessary.
I feel like they talked about it my whole life.
Yeah.
Like all the way from when I started driving.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And fun fact, I think I read this the other day, that Highway 20 is the longest regional road in the country. It goes all the way from California to New York.
Yeah,
if you just follow 20, it's the longest, I think, road in the United States.
I did not know that.
And it's funny when you get out of Iowa, because Highway 20, you just figure it's going to be 4 lane, it's nice, but then you get into Illinois, and it lasts for a little while, and all of a sudden you're on 2 lane roads back and forth trying to get into Galena. And it's the same way going the other way into Nebraska. You all of a sudden Highway 20 goes down to 2 lanes, and it gets slow again, and it'd be great if that was a 4 lane all the way across.
It's interesting too. Quite a number of years ago, I entertained a company that made basically buns for McDonald's, And this company would have been for, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the Midwestern states. And they agonized over where it would go with, 2 or 3 miles difference making a big difference with all the trucks they ran every single day.
Wow.
And the timing of that. So straight highways, good connectivity, easy access. To some companies, that's an extremely important set of factors.
Yeah.
Well, if your customers in
mileage.
this place 2-3 miles and you're saving it on 200 trucks, that's a big check every year.
I mean, now you've got Amazon locating out here, 170 drivers.
Yeah. Out of that one,
170.
Wow. I didn't know it was that many. I thought it was less than that. And that's all employees, too. So 170 employees
Well,
plus
don't
the
you
people
and Joyce probably need your own driver?
We probably could. They'll check and knock. If there's not a delivery that day, the postman knocks on the door and says, "Is everything okay?" You ever seen the meme? We had a llama delivered today and nobody was surprised.
Delivered where?
Oh, to our house. We didn't, but you could.
Okay.
Dennis and I, we were surprised. We're like, what?
Yeah, well, we might have.
But you're going back to your question in thinking about it now. I grew up at a time where my mother and I would come to Fort Dodge to shop, regional retail center. And I can remember my father would always, complain a little bit about all the leakage, the economic leakage from Pocahontas because we were coming down here to shop. But I think just the fact that I grew up in the region and was familiar with Fort Dodge impacted the way I looked at my job here over the years by quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. And you've talked about leakage before. We have. And just so listeners know, leakage is if somebody lives in Fort Dodge and shops in Des Moines, that's leakage because they're spending their money in Des Moines instead of Fort Dodge. That's why it's so important to have the Dunhams, to have the Walmarts, the Targets, all that stuff. Is the less leakage you have, the better. And I don't know, when you left, what was the leakage rate? Do you recall?
Well, I don't know about the rate. Our retail sales per capita were in Fort Dodge, maybe when I started was 1, 2, or 3 of the highest cities in Iowa. And we are still high in retail sales per capita, which means we're not leaking a lot of sales by virtue of our population or based on our population. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that the region is so much smaller.
Yeah.
So we're capturing what's there. It's not leaking out, but there isn't as much there as there was before. So income to realtors and to retailers and insurance companies isn't what it doesn't. We don't have the income that we had at one time.
Right. So even though we're getting the same piece of that pie, the pie's shrunk.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to look at an economy not from the standpoint of the corporate boundaries of Fort Dodge or Webster County, but to look at our economy as Fort Dodge plus all the surrounding counties. Manson, Humboldt.
Yeah, Calhoun County only has one stoplight.
Yeah, that's true.
Which means there's no big towns in there.
No.
Well, that'll be my takeaway today. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
you got to go get a picture with it.
Yeah, downtown Manson.
But it really is, and that's I've always tried to promote better cooperation and collaboration with surrounding counties, and I think it would be nice if the legislature would make it easier to invest together, county to county. For example, the Ag Park west of town. If you look at the fiscal impact of what that's providing, the majority is Webster County. But it's also providing a lot of fiscal impact for Humboldt County and Calhoun County. And, so, and we had, Ernie Goss do a fiscal impact study on that, and it shows the numbers. And, out of 400 million, Fort Dodge might get, 320 million of that, but the rest of it gets distributed elsewhere. So to me, it seems like it would be nice if other counties could invest in something like that, but also share in the proceeds.
Right.
And I'm not talking about, people living there. I'm talking about the direct taxes, make it easier to
share that.
share the direct income.
Well, even like Prestige and things like that to say, hey, Webster County benefits from that greatly.
Oh, over half the people that work there live in Webster County.
Yeah. So to be able to share that and say, hey, we will help you invest, but we also want to, take some of the taxes out of it.
I mean, that's reality. And that's actually since about 1971, the Twin Cities area developed a economic model that, they used to fight over who gets the industry,
right,
and who gets the housing. And now what they do is their economic development groups will locate certain types of development in certain cities, but they all share in the proceeds, from those developments. It's not singularly jurisdictional.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And that's the only place I know that actually does that. But they did it simply because they had all the suburbs that were competing with Minneapolis and St. Paul and so on. And now, theoretically, it's equitable in the distribution, so they don't have to fight over who gets an Amazon facility and who gets all the subdivisions.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And that almost leads into the Growth Alliance, because when you talk about that collaboration, you can't talk about collaboration in Webster County and the City Council and the Growth Alliance without when the Growth Alliance started, to take the Chamber of Commerce and the Development Corp and put those two together. Because I think the same thing happened here prior to the Growth Alliance, is the Development Corp would fight for a company to get it, and then the Chamber of Commerce would do it, and they would kind of go at each other, and it was just competition.
Yeah.
So to take that and put it all under one roof, it really made a difference in our community.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened, Todd. It got to a point where people in Fort Dodge were realizing that, you couldn't separate recruiting companies from quality of life. Because if you didn't have a place that people wanted to come and live and take a job at, you couldn't recruit the companies. Because workforce, clear back to the 90s, workforce was becoming a big issue everywhere. And at that time, the Development Corporation started doing some quality of life things. And then the Chamber of Commerce said, oh, well, wait a minute, isn't that our job? And they said, well, yeah, but you're not doing it. And there was accountability was more difficult when you had multiple groups.
Right.
Not saying anybody was right or wrong, but that's just the structure. And so I give a lot of credit to the business people, and they were strictly business people that got together and said, is there a better way we can do things in Fort Dodge? And Tim O'Toole from CNS Products led that. There wasn't any government people. I wasn't on it. But they went around and looked at all the other cities in Iowa, interviewed people, talked about what they do, what works, what doesn't work, and came back and they said, we need to try and merge everything together. So 1, there's accountability, and 2, there's efficiencies. And 3, when you're joining organizations as a realtor or a business, you don't have to write checks out to 4 or 5 different groups. You can write one check and you're pretty well, pretty well covered. And they came back with the idea that setting up the Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance was the way to go. They also felt that the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Community Foundation, Main Street, other groups ought to be housed at least together. They didn't think that the politics were such that you could get everybody under one umbrella.
Right.
But they should at least be in the same building. And I think if you go talk to Randy Kuhlman and others that are in that building now, they will tell you that although they were skeptical at first, they think it was the thing to do now, and it works very well down there. So
that's great. It's like such a simple concept too.
Yeah.
I was talking to a doctor friend that was building a new clinic. And he said one of the things they actually talk about when building clinics now is that interaction between patients, between the doctors and the nurses and everybody else. Because just that little interaction that, hey, how are you doing today, builds an atmosphere or a culture of we understand and we know each other. And it's kind of cool that these guys 12, 13 years ago were like, no, we all need to be under the same roof, because those just interactions throughout the day of, hey, how you doing, when I see you at the water, bubble or whatever.
If you don't, you have your own silos, because you don't talk to each other every day. Now you're walking by each other every day.
Yeah, I saw Joe Blow here and what's going on, and
And you're in the hallway and you're like, oh, hey, about that thing we talked about last week. What do you think about that? Okay, awesome.
It didn't get dropped. Talk about it later. I remembered it because I got to see somebody that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put some key words in here, but it's kind of like a Fort Dodge Doge. Well, how can we make this better?
You're running for office, Todd, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But another thing that happened just before that was this community went to a city manager form of government. Mm-hmm. And that too, was sort of a similar concept in that when I was at the city and before we had a city manager form, in my opinion, we were a group of maybe 10 different businesses, all competing for budgets and everything. When we went to a city manager, then we became one. And that competition went away. And then when Terry Lutz was elected to be the first mayor under the manager form of government, one of the things he did was come in and say, okay, economic development is going to be our primary purpose for everybody. And if you in Parks and Rec or you in the police department are going to make a decision on how we spend money and what we do, you have to ask yourself, no matter what it is this good for economic development, bad for economic development, or neutral? And that was sort of the focus of his 4 years as mayor. But it got us all thinking that the community, that economic development, again, as I said earlier, is bigger than just recruiting companies. Mm-hmm. It's a whole myriad of things that go into.
Oh, it's quality of life. It's public safety. It's fire ambulance. It's having the hospital here. It's
health care.
Yeah.
People don't. I talk to people that occasionally used to that were looking to be employed by somebody here, and they would ask those questions. They had concerns. They would have concerns about quality of health care, amount of health care. I have a son with Angelman syndrome, and there was a couple from Cleveland looking to work at Cargill, and they had an Angelman syndrome child, and they didn't think out here in the Midwest, out of the city, there'd be any kind of support and care for. Well, it was just pure dumb luck, but the Friday before, One Vision had a kind of a seminar out at the Opera House, and it was on kids with disabilities and services that are offered. So then in the Sunday paper, there was a big article on it, covering it, and they come in, and I'm talking to them, and they raise it, and so I go over and pick up the paper and show them that all this stuff is being planned for exactly what you're concerned about. On the front page of the
Fort Dodge newspaper, but printed yesterday.
A happy accident that it happened to be that Sunday and it was sitting next to your desk.
No amount of planning will ever take the place of pure dumb luck.
Wait, what's a newspaper?
Yeah, it's on your iPad. It's on his iPad.
But anyway, it's we have to look broadly, and I think it's hard to think about all the things that are important to everybody that might want to consider coming here. Mm-hmm. And I give the community credit. Geez, when I look at what's happened since the mid-'90s here, it's really incredible. And I was at the council meeting Monday night, and there was some talk about all the things we don't have and how bad some things are. And but I look at it from the other perspective. I look at how was it here and how is it now and what's the progress we've made? And it's significant.
It's like the problems now are smaller. Like, like we're here and no matter what you do, no matter where you are, there's going to be problems, right?
And I think people miss how proactive we had to be to get to where we're at. This wasn't pure dumb luck.
No.
This was a lot of planning and people saying, if we don't start taking care of these issues now, it's not going to get taken care of. And
well, it was learning to cooperate and work together. There was a time, when the Board of Supervisors would not talk to the city council and vice versa. There was no communication between the educational groups. I mean, just people were in their own silos. And if I can, I don't want to be one of those guests that just comes in and takes over your program.
No, that's what we want.
But I still get excited about this stuff. And I'll tell you when I think the turning point was in Fort Dodge, and it's timely because Nestle's just had their,
their 50th.
50th anniversary here. Mm-hmm. Well, Dan Payne used to call us a combative community. And I would say we were just a very uncooperative community.
I wouldn't go combative. That's a strong word.
But when Nestle's bought Elpo and the Federal Trade Commission, the paper covered this a little bit, but when they bought Elpo, the Federal Trade Commission said, you're too big, you got to divest a plant. And they had 6 of these wet cat food plants around the country. This is the one that had to go. And they said that it can't be sold to another major. It has to go to a generic wet cat food producer. Well, the problem was that at the time, this plant was producing about 21% of all the wet cat food sold in the United States.
Wow.
People don't realize how big this plant is.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cats.
Yeah. Big cats. But the entire generic marketplace in the United States was only 6% of the total market. So obviously that's not going to work because
nobody'd buy it because they had nowhere for their product.
And they had 141 people out there. Now they're over 200. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the community got together and said, no, we're not going to let this happen. Terry Branstad in his first term as governor, the Attorney General, Tom Miller, locally, the county, the city, the schools, the service clubs, the college, everybody got together to try and do something that had never been done in the Federal Trade Commission ever before, which was reverse a divestiture order once it had been issued. And we made a number of trips to Washington, and lo and behold, they reversed it, and it's the first and only time they've ever done that in the history of the FTC.
Wow.
And
it gives me chills.
I've got some correspondence from an FTC lawyer at home, and it says that they didn't do it because of the public pressure. They did it because we were able to show them that they were wrong and that this would be bad for the community and not meet the intentions of the Federal Trade Commission. Well, the point I'm trying to make here is it was a big deal, but probably more so from the standpoint that it showed this community how working together can accomplish something. Well, then a year later, we tried to get the correctional facility here, and we didn't get it. It went to Newton. We were beaten by 0.5 point. The following year, they decided to put another one up for bid, and we improved our application, and we got it. But we went through that same process again. Everybody got on the same page, and it was like a light bulb came on in the community.
We can do this.
In my opinion, yeah, it really was neat. And ever since then, things have, in terms of collaboration and cooperation, have just gotten better and better.
That's great.
Leading up, then you get the alliance, and I'm sort of progressing off of what you said
and
earlier.
you get the ag park. I mean, that's all because of the crossroads of global innovation. Sorry.
Yeah, if you would take me back to 1985, 90, I would never have bet or guessed that we could get an ag park like that built because of all the cooperation that it took and the investments, the co-investing. I mean, the city of Fort Dodge has spent hundreds of millions of dollars for utility work out there, and yet they don't get any direct property tax from it.
They get a little bit of water bill, but that's it.
Now, they get a lot of benefit because people live here and they build houses and they do all these things. But, you know, if you go back to the 90s, that never would have sold at the county, in my opinion, because there wasn't that desire to work together to develop something that benefits both. And
it's a huge benefit. I mean, there's more stuff coming. According to Ernie Goss, it was supposed to be 10 years ago, but
according to Cargill, it was going to be that's business. You know, when somebody's spending, you know, $500 million, it takes time to develop, and you're going to have more. I mean, you got Lygos coming, and there's going to be more stuff out there.
And I always think my brother worked at Tate and Lyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when Tate and Lyle was building and he's out there doing this, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, we're going to shutter it. It's done.
Oh.
And it just all the air just like that just, oh my gosh, it's going to be over. And then what was it, a year later, Cargill comes in.
Well, and you know, I said earlier, no amount of planning will take the place of pure dumb luck. Well, when that happened, you're right. That's exactly what happened. And there were about 5 things that could have happened, you know, from some investment group buying it. It could have been a Roquette. It could have been shuttered. It could have been, you know, and what happened was they had a project with a $265 million budget. They'd spent $300 million and still had $100 million to go to finish it. And then on top of that, it was proprietary technology that was similar to a plant they built in Loudon, Tennessee, that didn't work. And so and then on top of that, if you wonder, you know, some people said, well, what did the city do to them? On top of that, their chief executive changed from an English guy, a British.
Because Tate & Lyle's a British company.
Yeah.
Yep.
To a Pakistani, and he didn't believe in ethanol. And he took them from a low margin commodities type company to a high margin specialty company. And so they had no need for this plant. Well, so a lot of bad things could have happened. Well, lo and behold, the best possible scenario happened, which was Cargill buying it. Oh. And they bought it solely for the purpose of providing feedstock to other value-added companies, i.e. CJ Bio is an example where they produce the sugars and things that go into the amino acids, and right. and now it's back to your point about leakage and stuff. They're really high value added because they're, instead of shipping the corn out of here on rail, now we're adding that value right here in Fort Dodge, and we're not doing it in Ohio.
Right. We're not shipping corn out, we're shipping product out.
And you have some pretty cool engineering jobs that kids grow up and they're like, I want to work at Cargill. And they go to Iowa State and they come back.
And that's a great point. I think that the companies that Fort Dodge has, this is why I think the future is bright for Fort Dodge. And it might not be as bright for a lot of other rural, standalone communities. It's bright because we've got companies here now that take, indigenous inputs, corn and so on, CNS products, Nestle's. They're not mature markets, they're growing, they're cutting edge. They're companies that have access to the world marketplace. If you don't have that, boy, it's going to be tough to survive. And they're high investment companies that, it's not like a telemarketing firm. You can just pick up and move tomorrow and move the phone banks or whatever.
You can't move a $500 million company to somewhere else.
Yeah, and they're using stuff we grow here, stuff we make here. And then the last thing I would say is that, to your point, they're companies that
have good culture. Kind of good culture.
It's good. They do, and that's a good point. But they pay great wages, don't hire as many people per dollar of investment.
That makes sense.
And
so they're giving out $80,000-$90,000 a year jobs, not which $25,000 a year.
Yeah,
jobs.
which to me is what we want, because labor's an issue, and I wouldn't want to use up land out there for $15 jobs when I can have $100,000 a year jobs and this huge investment and huge tax base. So
yeah, they're vested in the community because they have to be. And I think that's why it takes so long to get new companies here, because they know when they put these companies here, they're marrying this community for the next 50 to 100 years.
Absolutely.
Another thing, you talked about the Alliance and the Foresight. You've talked going to a city manager and the Foresight. There was a lot of, and Highway 20.
Yep.
There was a lot of foresight went into developing that park out there, because people have always said, why in the world would you run utilities 7 miles and go through that expense? Well, because you've got 2 Class 1 railroads that cross that grade, and there isn't a half a dozen of those in the country that are outside of an urban area.
Right. Where you can actually have the land to put stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's worth, that might save, these guys ship unit trains of 120, 25 cars, and they may save $100 to $150 a carload because of that competition that's there at that site.
Yeah, the CN and the UP both won it.
Yeah, and so just add that up in your head.
150 cars times $150 times 3 times a week or whatever.
We looked at a paper company that penciled that out for them, that we're going to make diapers and things. They'd have to haul the paper or the wood product in, make the stuff here, and then ship it out. But their savings, because of the dual rail, was going to be over $10 million a year.
Wow. That's
just in transportation savings. So it's a big deal. And, it's another one of those little things that can make a difference in where somebody locates a company.
Right. Because it's global competition. It's not something, we're not competing against Missouri.
That's right.
We're competing against Taiwan.
Yeah.
We're competing against the Philippines.
Well, when CJ located here, we were competing against Malaysia, Indonesia, just as you said.
Yeah. The world, not just the country or even the Midwest.
So 50 years ago when you started, did you know about those things? Or
No.
did it just
No.
And did you learn about it the next day, or did
No.
it take years to figure out?
48 years.
48. I like that.
And now he's retired, he's still learning because
Yeah.
he still goes in every once in a while.
Yeah, actually my career took a little different turn than I'd anticipated, because when I was going to go to Kansas City, I was going to do environmental impact work for an engineering firm that had offices around the world. And I took the job here, and I found after a number of years, I liked the planning and I liked the other stuff that I had. But it was the economic development that I liked the most. And then when I think back, when I got my business degree at Augustana, the courses I liked the best were all the economics courses, and I always wished I'd have majored in economics, instead of business. But
Well, you wouldn't have been here, so another pure
that's
dumb
true.
luck for Fort Dodge.
but it just kind of it's funny how things work out.
Well, you could probably teach it now. Be a professor at Iowa Central.
Well, we're right back to that. No amount of planning will ever take the place of pure dumb luck. So, I actually used to have a little plaque on my desk that said that. So,
I'd have to find that.
But that's I think with cities that's a good point too, because cities have to do what we're doing. But then when some opportunity comes along, you're able to take advantage of it. The city of Fort Dodge, for example, I'll give them a lot of credit. When I left, we had like 5 different companies we were working with that were thinking about maybe going in the ag park. But you didn't know if company A and C would come, or just company B, or if all 4 would come. And to prepare for that, when you're providing the level of utilities that you are, there's a lot of cost and a lot of expense and a lot of design that goes in to be able to make a deal with them and make a commitment to them. And the city has done, and the county have done all of the foreplanning on that so that they can react to one or two or three, and
all the combinations.
Yeah, we're shovel ready is the term that people use. And, that's the kind of thing that, the average guy doesn't know because he's not in City Hall. That's being done that is really good for what we want to happen.
And that takes a lot of time, I'm sure.
It takes a lot of time and money. And
if you don't have the leadership in that building, the courthouse or the City Hall or the Growth Alliance, they're tough decisions, because you're spending money. And I always thought that, and I always preached, there's a difference between spending money and investing money in government or in business. And now I'm going to go full circle back to Terry Lutz when he was the mayor. What's it do for economic development, which drives everything? Are we investing in improving our chances of new economic development, or are we just spending money because somebody has a pet project?
Yeah. Right? You could save money and send 3 engineers home.
Yeah.
And not just say no.
But you're costing yourself a fortune later.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm a conservative, fiscal conservative. And I know, Todd, you would know, by the way, I've run the Growth Alliance and things, but I strongly do believe in spending the money if you're investing it and you're going to get a return.
Right.
If you're not, then maybe you're wasting the taxpayers' money.
And maybe it is a pet project and something that has some other other things that go with it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but easy for me to say, hard thing to do.
All right, so to wind down, 50 years in the city of Fort Dodge, working and retiring.
And we don't have 8 hours.
I know. We don't have 8 hours. What's a takeaway for everybody just for the next 50 years?
Well, everything in life, in my mind, is based on relationships. You can call it collaboration, cooperation, but it's relationships. And I think successful communities have good relationships. You can have good ones or bad ones, but you have to have it, and the good ones are the ones that give you a good outcome in your community. It's that simple.
I think I'm just now thinking of this. A compliment to you is I've been a realtor for 11 years and going in and out of businesses all the time. You've always been at such a pivotal point in our community, and I don't think there's a single business owner that's ever said a bad word about you. Because I feel like you've supported every single one of them.
Well, if they did, I probably wouldn't have heard it. But well, I don't know. I've really enjoyed it here, and like I said, we made two extremely conscientious choices where we were offered things elsewhere, and this is home, and I'm proud of the community and where it's going. I mean, we got a lot of issues to fix, no question, but
we're working on it.
Yeah,
it doesn't go unheard.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't have believed we are where we are 20 years ago. I really wouldn't. So,
Nope, I agree.
Well, thank you for your fight.
And thank you for being on the show. We appreciate you.
Thanks for the invitation. I got to polish my speaking skills up a little bit, but I'm still passionate about it. And
Yep.
Yeah, just speak from passion. It's easy.
yeah.
Yep. Awesome. And for everybody else, make sure you like, share, tell everybody about it. I think this was a great episode, and I'd love everybody to hear it. So,
Yep.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Yep.
That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of 2 lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiah Condon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.